So let's click here to start a new project. Biome 1, heightmap. Biome 2, filters. And yes, Biome 3, refinements. That's exactly the uh, the exact same things that I said in, let me just open it up real quick. Glacier National Park, we're going to continue this next Monday. But that's the exact same thing that I brought up in this stream that I had here. The first biome, as you can see right here, was purely just to import the height map itself. And the second biome here was to sculpt in where the water line was, to kind of reshape the water line a bit. And we're going to go much deeper into this landscape as well. But let's start back to our regular project. And let's just go ahead and increase the precision. And for the first biome, let's go back to create custom base shape, create, and flatten. So now we can come in here and import our custom height map. So we're going to seemingly try and capture Michell here, which is this zone. So if we were to go to terrain party, I've already grabbed the little selector to the general area, and then go up here to the top right where it says legend, use USGS topographic imagery. And this imagery is only available in the US. It is not available anywhere else in the world, unfortunately. So you would have to like do some trial and error with Google Maps. But the area, as we remember, we could use Google Maps to kind of pinpoint what this area looks like. And we could see it's this guy right here. So we zoom in and center it on Michell, which is right here on my cursor. And we don't want to use an 18-kilometer selection zone. Let's go to its smallest collection zone, which is 8 kilometers. Now, 8 kilometers is way too big for what I want to use it, but unfortunately, that's the smallest that Terrain Party will use. But again, remember I said in some episodes or some previous streams that they're going to be implementing DEM data, specifically forgot which ones they were going to try to implement, but there's going to be some real world data implemented directly within World Creator 3. So, and that'll come with the textures, like the imagery, the height maps, everything at whatever scale that you want to capture at. That's the ultimate goal here. But we can at least go ahead and kind of capture this 8K area and reduce down to the 2K area that World Creator 3's terrain size is, so that we can get an accurate scale. So we can go here to go ahead and save it to what you want. I have already done that here. So these are the height maps that Terrain Party will generate for you: Aster, Merge, SRTM3, and SRTM30. But we want to use the USGS, which is right here, which is based off 10 meters of capture. The rest are based off 30 meters, except for the merged. So if we were to see what this area looked like, you can see Michell is right here. But what we want to do is we want to crop this away to only show the 2K by 2K resolution capture just around where our guy's at. And the reason why I'm wanting to do that is because this terrain size here is based off 2K physical terrain size. So I want to make sure that Michell is matched in here as perfectly as possible as far as scale. So with that, what we can do is I can right click this and open it in Photoshop, which I have already done. So I have the capture here in Photoshop. And now I know that all of the height maps that you get from Terrain Party will always be 1081 by 1081 in resolution. No matter what capture size you have, if it's 8K or 64K, all of the height maps that they give you are going to be 1081 by 1081. But how do we go about making sure that we capture just a 2K by 2K area? So we go up to image, we need to increase the overall image size to match 8K. So that's 8,000 by 8,000. All right, you can see the coloration is weird, and we can go here to this point, go to mode, and we can even try to increase the bit depths a little bit, and then go up to filter, blur, and we can try our best to blur some of the um, details that are making the differences between 8-bit and 16-bit show up. And don't worry about that yet, because World Creator 3 has a neat way of going about that. So now that it is 8K by 8K, we can go up to image and choose canvas size this time. And we can choose to change the canvas to 2048 by 2048, which is the size in World Creator 3. Click OK. It knows that your image is larger than your canvas. That's fine. So now what we've done is we've cleverly taken the image that was 1081 by 1081, increased it to 8K to match the pixel size of 8K by 8K capture that we had. And then we reduced the canvas to a 2K size to use strictly for World Creator 3. You can still see right here some of those striations, which we don't like. But this is okay because remember, it's all based on your subdivisions within World Creator 3. Let's go ahead and show you that now. So here in the first biome, under import, we can select import, go to Monument Valley, and I have that 2K texture here. So you can see it doesn't look like much because our subdivisions were quite large. So the larger your subdivisions are, the more broad the detail for your height map is going to be evenly dispersed. So let's flatten this again. Let's increase our subdivisions up pretty high so that I can explain that issue. Click open again. And here you see that height map is closer to reality from what we captured, but we have all of these ugly topographic lines. And there's ways in World Creator 3 where you can go about removing these. But for this example, we don't really want to deal with trying to use World Creator 3 to remove all of these topographic terraces. So what we can do is it's all about a balance between we can do the flatten filter with a height limit and or even a slope limit too. So you can flatten everything based off of a slope and select all the slopes that aren't flat. And it can help blend those out. Even adding something like the Denoise filter will help. You can see that here. The Denoise filter will automatically just do that for you, unless you start removing some of the deviations. But the more deviations you have, the smoother that Denoise filter is going to help smooth out your terrain. But we're going to do it a different way here, just so that I can show you what you would want to do in case you wanted to use the bulk. So it's all about flattening, finding a good balance of these subdivisions, importing. And you see this is a somewhat of an okay balance here. But now that we've already shown you that process, so here's a decent balance, somewhat of a decent balance. You still have that detail, but we can use those striation details for rocks and helping out with erosion and whatnot. So let's go ahead and flatten this again and increase it just ever so, just one more. Import the terrain. Now it's the same size, it's 2K by 2K, but how do you judge this height scale here? Well, right now, without being able to know how high this is, you can't judge the height yet. So all of it's based off feel right now. Later, we're going to be able to know exactly how high this is from the height of the lowest point, and then we can gauge those based off scale from Google. And I showed how to scale the z-axis in my last stream at least talked about it, but we don't have to go over that here. It's seemingly just knowing in real world the height of this and knowing in real world the height of the lowest portion of your terrain, knowing that range, and then just scaling this based off those 2 points. So let's say let's say Mitchell is about right here at 2.5 in height scale. And now you can see we're not going to touch this biome again. Well, actually, let's just add that denoise filter because it worked really well. And if we were to increase this a lot, you can see it's adding all those terraces back. Let's see the threshold. The threshold will adjust how the range at which it captures the denoise. So if we were to get the deviation somewhere in the middle and increase the threshold just slightly at a time, we can get, I don't want to remove all the terrace because it's a nice effect within this area for stuff to capture. But at least now we have somewhat more of a smooth, let's increase that up a little bit. Now we have so much more of a smooth terrain to work with. And yeah, there's that common debate on which direction Z-axis is in. World Creator 2, Z-axis was, right here. X-axis was in this direction, and Y-axis was up. And I tried to get them to make Z-axis directly up, and X and Y should be this way. And the reason why, a lot of programs use X and Y as the flat axis and Z-axis as the vertical axis. A lot of programs, but there are some programs that do it differently. And the reason why I think Z-axis should always be up, it's just basic, math geometry. When you look at the our Cartesian coordinate system, everything is in X and Y in a flat plane. And when you go to a 3-dimensional scale, everyone goes to the Z plane. Yeah, because of unity. All right. Sorry, I was just checking my notes. All right, so we have the general shape here of Mitchell, and we can seemingly at this point, we don't want to go in and customize this first biome because this first biome is the biome for the height map only. And we don't want to interfere with our height map. So this first biome, we will not do any sculpting whatsoever on it because we want the height map to be non-destructive. And we want all of our shaping to be on other biomes that are, quote unquote, destructive. Because say if we were to, work in this biome here, the first biome with our height map and sculpt it. Well, if you were to re-import a height map on top of this area, say you found a more detailed height map of that area, what you seemingly did is going to be overwritten because the height map is, when you re-import it, it's going to overwrite the custom shaping that you just did. So it's a good practice that the first biome, like we discussed in chat, is to be only for the height map itself. And you can add filters and textures to it if you want. That's okay. But the custom base shape part, just keep it at whatever division you need it to be to get the good height map result. Then we can add 2 new biomes if we wanted to. Make those biomes subsets of each other. Well, let's just remove this one and do one at a time. Add its operation to add, and then create custom base shape off of it, but flatten. And this, we want the subdivisions to be pretty high. Okay. So seemingly what it looks like, there's a bug here that here we go. There's no bug. I just didn't do the operation correctly. So whenever you do the filter denoise on the first biome, On the second biome, just always make sure you click inherent filters so that it will re-smooth it out, because the second biome is going to try and redistribute the detailing a bit. And so it's going to add those terrible issues that we saw from the first biome back. So when you do this, operation add, inherit biomes, and then custom base shape, flatten. And here we can increase our subdivisions. So you can do multiple biomes for different levels of subdivision if you want. But here we can easily just do, we're just going to do one biome here. And that way we can do this biome for all of our textures and filters as well. So say I want to, carve this away just a little bit. And now everything that we're doing here is non-destructive from the first biome. I'm also holding control and scrolling up and down on the mouse wheel to change the size of my paintbrush. And I'm wanting to be sure to capture all of this area here. Because I want to raise it up just a tad. I did it accidentally. That's one of the problems, is if you accidentally click off of what you're selecting, you will lose the selection, which is an unfortunate thing. So hopefully the controls for that could be a little bit smoother so that whenever you click off something by accident, you don't just lose everything that you did. I have to make sure that I am selecting the area. Now to remove, instead of the left mouse button is to add detail. To remove detail, it's the right mouse button. So holding control, right mouse button will remove detail. All right, so let's increase this a little bit. There we go, because I want a nice little cliff there. Mountain in one biome, rivers in one, caves in another, etc., so that you can go back to certain biomes to change just those. Yeah, that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make here. We can create multiple biomes for sculpting. And remember, whenever painting biomes, becomes a thing, we can paint in areas that we want to just affect the sculpting as well, and not have to worry about that biome being across the entire terrain. So like in this, if I wanted to create another biome, add, inherit filters, create custom base shape, flatten. Say I want to, just mask out this piece right here for this third biome only. Then I could, and then for this third biome would be the only biome that I can sculpt in, certain types of rock elements, certain textures, certain rivers. So that's one way that we can go about doing it. So yeah, we can have different biomes for different things to sculpt and paint, and it all be non-destructive. So it's a really good workflow to have biomes treated in that manner. So again, I'm going to click canyon, going to add the mountain filter, and the mountains are going to balloon out some of these areas. So you see no mountains, it's going to balloon out our rocks and make the face of our of Michell here look a little bit more pronounced with actual rock details. But I want to only do that for the convex areas instead of the whole thing. And then we're going to add, again, Erosion Flow. Now, I wanted to showcase one reason why denoise can sometimes be an issue. That reason right there. So let's remove some of this strength and threshold. So one reason denoise kind of hurts us in a way here is because it removes too much detail to capture. So if we were to remove denoise, you can see all that stuff is back in. Let's go here and lower our subdivisions a couple times. Re-import the height map. You can see the height map has been re-imported, but now we have all the detail that we want back. But let's go ahead and, because we removed the detail, we don't have our nice cliff here again. So we have to go back in here and raise the cliff. So we could do a few things to kind of help that along. But do keep in mind that to keep these cliffs really sharp, you always have to make sure that you stretch the detail back. So it's kind of a balance. The denoise is going to work, but it'll also hurt in some of the detail depending on what you're doing. Again, it's all depending on what you're doing. We'll need to add some of that detail back. And erosion flow needs to be based off height because erosion flow is cutting away too much of our top here. So let's make sure that it's using all the base here, but we want to cut it somewhere around right here. Let's lower this top value till we see that it's being removed. Oop, too much. See, it's right here. So let's just do that. There we go. So that's looking a lot closer to what I was thinking it would be. If you slope off the noise filter, you can keep detail in the rock. Yeah, that's true. If I were to, yes, that is also very true. If I were to have that denoise filter back, and if we were to slope off, some of this a little bit more gracefully, especially this one right here, we can keep that detail back in the rock. So let's give that one a try. Now that this is a good trial and error. So let's say we go back to our higher subdivisions. We re-import again. We have that. Now I've already screwed up let's actually flatten this. All right, so we've removed the sculpting that I did. Add denoise. And let's lower this top value a bit. You can see we're adding that detail back. Let's remove this one entirely. And let's remove that one entirely. So now we can still get our terraced look that we like. But we still have the base area. So this is looking really nice. So if we were to double right click on our canyon, it'll duplicate it. And let's set this distribution to be slope. and a really low slope at that. And I'm going to make this area quite rocky. So the sharpness strength, increase that. There we go. So looking fairly good. The last thing I want to do here real quick is add sediment complex. And then I want to make sure that it is at a really short length. And I also want to make sure it's based off of height because there's nothing at the top here. Somewhere about in the middle and smooth it up. There we go. So I've probably done this terrain a couple times to try and get a good look, and it looks different every time. But this seemingly is fairly close to the kind of, you know, look that we could use for one of these monuments. This area here, actually, now that I remember it, we had a terrace. Do the terrace after the mountains. Oh no, we added the detail back. That's okay. Terrace. Terrace is just really strong. Let's see this. Make these really big and lower our strength on those. There we go. Is see, hopefully, what we can do with Terrace is add a noise to it. I mean, we could technically add, you know, see, we could add a Voronoi to it, or but the distribution should you have to have a distribution first in order to do that. So we can do whirly noise and then Terrace strings. We can see where we're applying it. See, it's just not quite the effect that I'd like to look after. But hopefully, say we want to add a terraced band right here specifically, or right here we want to add a terraced band specifically. Hopefully, we can go about saying, hey, we want there to be a single terraced band, and we want that band to be at X height, or we want that band to be at X position based on where I click on my mouse. There should be some irregularity to this instead of all of these being spaced evenly. Hopefully, we can have a terraced irregular back where we can, you know, have a noise to how irregular these are spaced because these are spaced far too evenly right now. Far too evenly. Perfect. So you guys get the idea. We can throw on any number of materials that we want in here, which I'm not going to go too far because we're going to cover uh, texturing techniques next week, I believe, on a different episode. Well, yeah, I think it's going to be next week or the week after. We're going to cover some different texturing techniques. Bit. Let's get a nice sandy color and a distribution to height. this to about right here. Then create flow. Add a noise to this. So nope, 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 that one. Let's add slope to this as well. There we go. So something just quickly doing, just trying to quickly do some quick texturing there. Maybe that's back a little bit. There we go. And let's, for fun, add one more vertical texture. This time we're going to make sure it's a kind of a musty brown color. And do it based off slope, vertical. We're going to make sure the vertical is really sharp. So there we go. And then add edge, strength. There we go. Just a little fun. Cyan. And say we've decided to make an alien planet. And we want this to be distributed based off of, let's see, what can we do? I want this to be fill, flow again. And another height. There we go. Some really wild looking effects here. So you can see we can just spend endless amounts of time on this. Hoping to have a stream on Monday to go back to Glacier National Park to cover some. There's some copper in the hills for sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, let's see. Here's the area. There's copper there, right? Let's see if we've got. There's our boy right there. If it would show up a little bad. Why not? Let's, for one last texture. Add some muted green. And we'll say this is the pure base slope of them all. Something like that, close enough. Oh, I turned that one off. All right. So there we go. I think that covers the stream today. That was basically the main point, was just to showcase that using biomes for creating different levels of detailing, different levels of sculpting. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes almost. So next week, I'm hoping to do a stream to continue. It'll be a chill stream like this, or probably way more chill than this, on trying to do some more sculpting on Glacier National Park on Monday. If not Monday, it'll be Tuesday. It depends on my real time, real life workload. And Wednesday, we're going to have another stream like this, except instead of an erect monument from Monument Valley, we're going to cover how to do a crater, like a lunar crater, a single. We're going to try to focus on a single crater and how that crater can be designed for the moon and how that crater can be designed here on the planet. Because I have a really nice crater in Australia, I think it is. I think it's in Australia. That's a really good example of a single meteorite impact. But we also want to showcase that for the moon as well. So, two different types of craters next Wednesday. And I hope to see you guys there. Next month, we fake the moon landing. Sounds good. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Let me go ahead and just save this as a fun monument valley terrain. And I'll make sure that it is saved on the Patreon page. I'll make this one for free for you guys since I kind of went off the boundary here. And what this looks like, you can grab, and I'll make sure the height map is in there for you too. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.